Yep. We are all good to go. This is the Inland Wetlands Watercourses and Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, October 6th, 2022 at 7 p.m. It is being audio and video recorded. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Rich.
Call this meeting to order. We've taken a roll call. Pete Chalecki is on Zoom. We have Brandon Hyde and Michael Lahan here, along with myself, Richard Morrell. So we have a quorum. Do I hear any conversation on the minutes from last month? Is there a move to approve? So moved.
Brandon Hyde, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pete, turn on your mic.
Yep. Aye. You hear me?
Yes, thank you very much. Any opposed? Hearing none, so moved. Communications,
I don't have anything for you tonight.
old business, WWCC number 22-14, 196 200 Yantic Street.
Yep, this is an application for the Uncas Leap Heritage Park, and Michael Doherty from SLR is on to present. Mike, you can share your screen if you want.
Okay. Can you all see the site plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good evening. My name is Michael Doherty. I'm a principal landscape architect with SLR Consulting. We are formerly known as Mylone and McBroom, and we've been working at the Uncas Leap Heritage Park site since I would say about 2016. We took a little break after adopting or having the finished master plan in around 2018, and we're lucky enough to be back working for the city in the design of the detailed construction plans for the park. So what I'd like to do is just do a brief overview of the site plan. Hopefully you've had a chance to look through the more detailed construction or basically 60% design drawings, and happy to ask questions at the end, or you can feel free to interrupt as I go. Just to orient you onto the map that's in front of you, Yantic Street is at the top of the page here. North is basically straight up, slightly off to the right. The Yantic River is along the bottom of the sheet. So starting in the upper left corner in the northwest quadrant, coming around the curve of Yantic Street as you make your way down towards the condominiums, we'll be utilizing the existing parking lot that the city built a couple of years ago. And really our project will start just outside that parking lot on the Yantic Street streetscape. We'll make some improvements to the sidewalks just to the east of the parking lot as you make your way down Yantic Street and along the frontage of the park property. The park property is about 1.7 acres that we'll be utilizing. There are no delineated wetlands on the site. However, we did flag the ordinary high water line of the Yantic River. The kind of pink to reddish line that runs across the sheet here delineates the upland review area. So you can see the majority of the site falls within that 100-foot upland review area. As we make our way down Yantic Street towards the existing pedestrian bridge, we'll be making some renovations to that area here where there's an existing fairly steep asphalt walk down to the pedestrian bridge. We will create actual formal stairs there to just make that direct access a little more safe, especially in snowy or wet conditions. And we'll also be adding a new walk from the pedestrian bridge up towards Yantic Street to create an accessible route there, so that there's two methods to go to the bridge or to come from the bridge and make your way to Yantic Street. To the west of this area, we're showing just a small informal path to a seating area. If you've been down to this spot here, it's a kind of a nice view over to the bridge itself and to the railroad trestle bridge. And you can get a glimpse of the upper falls with a little bit of clearing of vegetation along the kind of upper river banks. We think we can improve that. We also have shown a couple of picnic benches in this area just to provide a kind of an informal area for people to gather and enjoy proximity to the falls and the bridge. Dan, we did see in your notes just to make sure that these are on the city property and not shown across onto the railroad property. So we'll tweak that and pull those over to ensure we're not off the city's property. As you make your way or you continue on Yantic Street to the east, we are showing a cantilevered stair structure that'll take you into the park to provide direct access. So you don't necessarily have to walk all the way down towards the former stone mill. This is an opportunity to also have a small bump out on that structure. The views from up even along the street here, once cleared, are pretty magnificent to the gorge and the falls themselves. You can take those stairs down to the main park kind of area itself, where a small cantilevered structure overlook will be provided. So a small gathering of people can get pretty close to the edge and feel like they're kind of overlooking or getting over that gorge in the area of the famous Uncas Leap. So just to have that feeling and get the mist of the water coming up at you, you can stand currently at this corner here, where there's an old piece of the mill race. It's just a really breathtaking view across there. So we'd like to kind of formalize that area a bit and create this overlook so people can really experience the views and just that feeling of the gorge and the rockiness that's around you. Continuing in the park proper, this beige color are permeable sidewalks. So we're still working out the exact detail on what that material would be, but the guiding document of the master plan, we had always envisioned limiting as much as possible paved surfaces within the park. So we will be looking into maintenance-free permeable options. And these pathways take you kind of around the edges of the park. This one continuing over towards the edge of the Yantic River. Again, we're proposing a small overlook structure kind of nestled into the trees that are in this area. It's a little bit of a different feeling here than the one previously. But again, you get great views kind of down river and continuing down the gorge and just even across to the park property that's forested across the way. Just again, some spectacular views of just the natural beauty of the area. If you continue to the east and down gradient here, you'll actually be dropping in elevation down to what we're calling the story circle here with this designation of number 14. This is a little bit of a change from the submitted plans. Originally, we showed this as a lawn circle area. We're thinking in terms of maintenance and durability, maybe a permeable paver, decorative circle with an outer decorative ring, potentially of steel. But this is a small sort of amphitheater event space that can be used on a daily basis for people to come eat their lunch, just be able to hang out in the park. But the city can also use it for special events. The Mohegan Tribe, this was coordinated with them during the master plan process, that they can have events here as well and utilize this as a story circle for their gatherings. Continuing across here is where we get into some of the grades associated with the property. If you've been out there recently, I'm sure you have seen some of the cut and fill that's been done with the work to the stone mill building. And so we have to kind of deal with those grades and the water that sheds off it. And right now we'll be utilizing some of the terracing as the amphitheater is placed here, but there is still a fair amount of gradient down to the kind of southeast that we'll be kind of picking up in this lawn area here and here, with a small swale at the base of that. This number 15 that is where my cursor is, would be a small boardwalk actually crossing over those grades and down to what was the loading dock area of the old stone mill or the art form building. It's in somewhat decent shape. We think we potentially could use it as a base, but would have to do some improvements to it just to make it a little more accessible. But we would overtop that with a new material, whether it be concrete or pavers, and utilize it as a walk along this facade of the stone mill that faces the west. And then you'd be able to enter into the bones or the skeletal structure that has been built to support the stone ruins of the stone mill building. So if you've been into the site, I don't know if you've had access to it, it's pretty neat. Once you get in through that archway, there is a existing concrete pad that was poured, and our plan proposed to add to that in this area here, number 18, to create what we're calling an exhibit room to allow people to kind of come in here, experience the look and feel of the stone mill building. The difficulty of this area is just trying to corral people in and not allow them to just have free access to that space, because there are the support structures that are sort of an attractive nuisance in terms of climbing, as well as the facade of the building, the stones. There are a lot of loose stones still in the vertical wall and the structures that's still there. So we want to keep people kind of away from those, so there's not vandalism and just even people just curious and touching things over time. So this area would have a decorative fence around it, and we think we can incorporate some site signage, informational, to keep people's interest and not make it feel like you're being kind of penned in. If you continue up the stairs here to access back up to Yantic Street, we're proposing a small area of bumped in angled parking. So we have 4 spaces designated. 2 of them would be accessible spaces. And the reason for that being the distance from the parking here, which does include 1 accessible space. We thought it would be prudent to include a couple more in close proximity to kind of the main area of the park. And then we also have 2 non-accessible designated spaces. So on a daily basis or event, if those haven't been taken, those are kind of prime parking spots. Along Yantic here, we're showing a bump in for bus or shuttle drop off. We also foresee this being utilized at events for food trucks or other vendors that could be parked here and not impeding traffic on Yantic Street itself. Overall, the site plan plans to clean up the park. The soils out there, everything is fairly disturbed. There are some environmental concerns with soils, so we will be doing work to remove controlled and contaminated soils. We will be looking to improve the vegetation on site in terms of removal of some invasive species, as well as just clean up some of the overgrowth, open up some views, and provide a little more attractiveness along the facade of Yantic Street and internal to the park, some shaded areas so that you're not potentially in full sun throughout the time you're there. Also, I didn't mention, but there will be a small restroom building kind of central to the park here where this designated 8 is, and that would just be 2 bathrooms and possibly a storage area for the city to keep things to kind of keep the restrooms in check. We will also be proposing landscaping along the edge here, along the upper reaches of the upland area, just to keep people kind of away from that edge, but also to just improve the condition there and just accentuate some of the walkways. Right now, it's pretty much free. You can walk up to the edge. There are some old stone walls, old foundations. We'll be keeping the majority of that intact. But to provide a little bit more safety and a little bit more buffer, since we're kind of now inviting more people into this space, we don't necessarily want to erect a fence along this entire section, but we believe that the plantings and things could keep people at least a little bit at bay and onto the sidewalk, so they're not venturing onto the trails and things that have been kind of informally put into the hillside here. We have made some changes from the master plan. If you're familiar with that plan, we actually have reduced the number of sidewalks and connections to kind of keep down the improvements. The site itself is so fantastic. You know, our goal really is to kind of have a light touch and not make too many improvements on the site that it feels forced. So we're really trying to let the site shine because it is such a fantastic area, has such a rich history, and we really just want to accentuate that and showcase it for the city and the visitors that come to it. I'm happy to get in any specifics, and I could pull up, you know, the detailed plans or other things as needed.
What's your time frame on this development?
So we're hoping to be able to bid it early winter of 23. So I think we were shooting for about February to have it on the street.
Can you tell me whether or not there's any other planned seating besides the amphitheater?
Seating?
Any picnic benches, park benches, anything else? Any place for people to sit besides?
Sure. So yeah, it's a little hard to see on this rendered plan because the trees cover some of them, but if you see these small boxes,
Those benches.
you can see there. Oh,
Okay.
moving that line. Yeah, so that we have them scattered kind of along. The idea right now is that these are kind of informal, maybe stone benches. We'll probably have some off the shelf products as well. But yes, they'll be arranged throughout the edges here and here, so that as you make your way along the paths, they'll be kind of strategically placed where we can find a nice, you know, place to have a sit down and maybe a view across the park, you know, in proximity to the restroom if you're waiting for someone, along the back side of the amphitheater here. And then potentially we could look into something down at the edge of, you know, towards the stone mill, but the space there does start to get a bit confined by some of the grades and the building itself.
Okay, thank you.
Brandon Hyde, I have a couple questions. What is the amphitheater seating constructed of?
Right now, we're working on detailing that again as a stone seating facade. There are stones on site from the partial demolition of the stone mill building. We'd like to be able to reuse some of those. They're not as large as we had hoped, so they're not full, you know, 2 foot by 2 foot pieces. They're more skinny, so we could use them as a veneer. So these would potentially be the concrete core with that stone or another stone similar to the stone that's out there that we can match and reuse some of it and then bring in new stone. But we're trying to keep in a pretty naturalistic palette of materials. The steps themselves, right now our detail is a concrete step, and then the seating would be the stone.
Okay, thank you. And it looks very conceptual. I'm not sure where you are in planning at this point. Is there an E&S plan in place for specifically the topography coming off that story area, lending itself to the river?
Yep. Yeah, so we'll have the full edge of the park wrapped in, you know, silt fence and hay bales, and that's just shown here. And then we're gonna have erosion control matting put along any of the steep slopes, excuse me, 3 to 1 or more.
Okay.
But yes, sediment erosion control is definitely going to be a paramount concern, since we are so, you know, directly related to the river here and the steep slopes of the gorge.
Yeah, and towards the edge, I imagine there's a lot of ledge, so I don't know how far they're going to get the stakes in the ground.
Right. Yeah, that's why I think we're going to have the hay bales as well. Maybe core logs, but probably, you know, certain areas will have to get kind of doubled up, or we'll have to take the fence and move it in where we,
Sure.
you know, don't hit ledge.
Yep. And speaking of ledges, the two outcrop areas, is there any kind of fencing or barrier to prevent people from going over the edge there?
The outcroppings on the riverside?
The two view shed areas.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so the front and sides of those will have fence railing.
Really.
Is that the dotted? Okay, I see. Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Otherwise it becomes suicide leash.
Well, that's what I now see the dotted references.
The restrooms are self-contained.
Sorry, meaning,
Meaning just that, are they self-contained units? Is there not going to be any outflow of any sort?
oh, like a composting toilet?
Right.
No, right now we're looking at, I have the utility plan, tying into the sanitary line
Okay.
out in the street. So
Okay.
we have a plan. We can make that work to tie into the sanitary line.
Any other questions?
I have none.
It seems though it's in a conceptual stage. You want to let anything be done administratively for now?
Well, we're at about 60% design level.
Yeah, it's pretty far along. We've been involved the entire time between planning and public works.
Yep.
So I'll go over my memo in a moment, which is extremely brief. It's mainly just our normal conditions of approval. We had a couple minor changes. It was adding dimensions to the parking stalls in the street, moving the picnic tables that Mike talked about, and showing utility connections for the bathrooms. But other than that, we've been involved right along. So I'm not too concerned with the project at this point. We're excited for it to happen, for sure. It's gonna be great.
Yep, this is Brandon. I'm excited for it to happen as well. I like the idea of the permeable paving. That makes a lot of sense on the site. And I'm content with the ENS that's shown sufficient enough for me to move forward. Therefore, I move to approve IW.
Brandon.
Sorry. Yes.
Just we need a motion regarding a public hearing before that.
Oh, because it's within, yep, okay. This is Brandon. I move that IWCC 24-14 is not significant enough to warrant a public hearing.
Second,
All
this is
in,
Michael, I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
unanimous, so moved.
Therefore, move to approve IWWCC number 22-14.
Perhaps subject to conditions.
Subject certainly to. the
Yeah, I'm
conditions
gonna
of,
bring them up here. I'd ask that you just waive the reading of those just for
Yeah.
your time.
I
And
move-
you already stated your reasons saying that the ENS controls are sufficient.
Exactly. Yeah. And just for clarification, I apologize. Thank you, Dan.
No problem.
I will move to waive the reading of the conditions since they are filed.
This is Michael, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous, so moved.
Further go to approve IWWCC number 22-14 with the conditions stated by the city of Norwich.
This is Michael, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Pete? Aye.
Rich, aye, unanimous, so moved.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes. New business,
We have two applications tonight. The first one will be IWWCC 22-15. It's for 180 North Wauwekis Hill Road. It's a recreational trail and parking area. And I'd asked if it's a kind of a prefab bridge that's going to go to allow for ADA access onto the trail. And I believe it can be handled administratively if the commission is fine with that.
This is the Avalonia property on North Warwick's.
Okay,
I would agree. I think that's something that staff can handle.
that being said, might as well make it an official motion. Having faith in Dan, I move that IWCC number 22-15 be handled administratively.
This is Michael, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Pete, aye.
Aye, so moved unanimously.
And then, thank you. The second is IWWCC 22-16, which is 300 Canterbury Turnpike. It's related to the cease and correct order from last month. And Pam, one of the property owners, is in the room with you to give you an update regarding the cease and correct order and the actions that's been taken since September.
Yeah,
So just for clarification, Mr. Chairman, are we taking up that 22-16 or are we just getting an update at this point?
The application was part of your cease and correct order.
Okay,
So once Pam explains to you what's going on, if you want me to handle the rest of it administratively, that's fine with me. Or if you want them to come back again next month, either way, it's up to you at this point.
thank you for the clarification, Dan.
Sure thing.
So I believe that we're pretty much up to speed with what you asked us to do.
could you just introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, my name is Pam Kegels, and I'm one of the members of the partners of the LLC Three Rivers Retrievers that owns 300 Canterbury Turnpike, on which we train hunting retrievers. That's the problem. At any rate, so I think that we're sort of up to speed on what you asked for last month. I believe that there are photographs to show you what's been done that Dan can put up. And so the property that was in question was, okay, so that shows, sure. That shows the hay, and what you can see is grass coming up in between the hay. These pictures are maybe 2 or 3 days old. I was just there right before I came here, and today everything popped like crazy after all the rain and then today's sun. So it's been smoothed, it's been seeded, it's been hayed, and as of about, when I left there about 6 o'clock, it had popped just everywhere.
I would add that I went up at about 4:30 and saw everything that Pam just described.
So you saw a lot of seed had sprouted,
Yeah.
probably even more than what these pictures showed.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a couple more days and it'll be, a carpet. A couple days of sun anyway.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of rain, as we all needed and wished for since the last meeting. So the timing was perfect for doing this. The pond has started filling back up. It was, pretty low. And so we did this work right up to where the water typically is. So we still have a little bit of filling of water to come in. I think though it's really getting there. So that's pretty much what I had to say.
Pam, do you have the numbers that you were telling me about the other day? I believe it was 200 pounds of grass seed.
That's right, 200 pounds of grass seed, and then
Clover and radish.
the clover, I'm not sure how much. The radish was about, I think it was half an acre of radish.
Half an acre?
That's how they measured the seed. It was enough to cover that.
Was it a
much.
seed mix or did you? or did you mix it?
No, it was pre-purchased, it was pre-made.
Okay, like a pasture
Came in a
mix? or-
bag.
Okay, cover crop mix maybe?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
That's okay. Had ryegrass in it, I imagine.
The grass seed was in a separate bag,
Okay,
and then the radish mix was in a separate bag. We spread it
Understand.
all separately.
okay. Dan, how many square feet was it that was disturbed, that needed to be seeded?
I'm not sure. I wasn't on the property until today. Everything from the previous pictures and just from seeing it in person, they covered the area that was all dirt in the photos from last month's meeting. But I would defer to you in terms of landscaping and seeding. If you-
Yeah, I'm just, yep. Not knowing the mix, I guess it's just hard to, I assume if it looks good, it's good, I guess. If it popped, how long ago did you see?
We started seeing sprouting, let's see, today's Thursday. I started seeing it last Sunday, and then I was there again Tuesday, and it looked even better. And then tonight I was,
And it was seeded 2 weeks ago?
it was, yeah, about 2 weeks
So it's a
ago.
perennial rye. It looked like perennial rye, so that's good for establishment. And then you overseed it with clover and radish.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Dan, if you think that it's filling in well, I'm happy with the mix. It sounds good.
Okay. And you, Brandon, you had mentioned during the last meeting about further steps that you may want to see happen after this becomes established.
Yeah, it would be nice. I mean, I'm not sure, it'd be nice to see some natives around the pond if possible. I don't know. Is the objective to keep it completely clean around the edge, or were we gonna
The
reestablish
objective
any
is to
natives?
keep it clear enough,
Yeah.
you know, that's because we run the dogs
Sure.
from the fields, through the pond, through
Yep.
the fields.
Little native blueberry or something like that.
Dan, you had, I'm trying to remember back to the last meeting. The biggest thing was to stabilize it, obviously.
Right.
With control, and there's sufficient amount of mulch on there, and it's good that it's popping. It was planted at the perfect time, which was our objective.
Yeah.
Which I should mention Brandon said and picked and said, this is immediately the time to do it. And turned out to be, he was exactly right.
So, no, I'm happy with that.
Somebody ought to point out when somebody did something exactly right.
Thank you. Yes. Sorry, I'm deep in thought about it and trying to wrap my head around it. It's a landscape geek in me, but no, I mean, it's sufficient. And I guess just if staff could just keep an eye on it to make sure that, the stabilization continues to mature. Maybe do a late season check, Dan, and then we should check it again in the spring just to make sure there's been a proper
Okay.
step, no rutting in the off season.
And when you say late season now, about what time?
Yeah, we should check it again in November, maybe
Okay.
mid-November, and
All right.
make it established pretty well. I mean, it's young, it popped well, but if you get a really heavy rain, you could get some rutting, and those ruts, as you know, start small and get larger,
Sure. Okay.
contaminate the pond. So, and then maybe just to check in the spring to make sure that the ruttings, didn't in the off season get worse. But beyond that, I'm happy with what they did.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, I had mentioned to Dan, if we felt like we needed more seed, we could always do more seed.
Overseed in the spring.
Overseed,
Yep.
right, right. I think it's gonna hold the dirt just fine.
Good.
It's really come up well.
Yeah, the rye will pop quick, and the clover will be really good for wildlife in that area.
Mhm,
The radish is somewhat of a short-term cover crop, but it'll be good
mhm.
for this winter too. So,
Yeah, I think the radish really, that holds the soil so well. That's what we did
it's a
in the
great cover
big
crop.
fields to hold the big fields, and that did a great job.
It's a wonderful cover crop. Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah. And it'll do good going into the late season
mhm. And the deer love it.
in the daily.
Dan, have you received an application for this work?
We do have it in the system. I was going to defer to the commission how you want it to proceed. If it's a full application and you want an update, if it's just for me at the next meeting, that's fine. I believe Pam is going to be traveling, but she said she could attend via Zoom in November if you want to hear from her again.
Personally, Dan, if I think you just keep an eye on it, like I said, with a fall and a spring, my personal opinion would be to let this be handled administratively.
Okay,
Therefore, I move to allow IWWCC 22-16 to be handled administratively moving forward with an update to the Wetlands Commission.
This is Michael, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Peter?
Hello.
Peter?
Yeah, aye. You
Aye.
hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
thank
And now,
you.
buddy.
Trouble with this mute button here.
Any violations, Dan?
nope, none at this time. Potentially for next month.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Peter?
I don't want
Aye.
rhythm where you're doing.
Unanimous.
Just getting the groove.
So moved. Meeting is over. Thank you, gentlemen.